All right, everybody, welcome back for another video. Virtual Voices, a podcast about role play and role play fighting. And today's podcast is a very special podcast, and we have some special guests. It is not your ordinary guests where you have people role playing and they've been around for about, say, 5 years or 6 years, but these people have been around longer than I have. These people have been around for about, let's see, 20 years, 20 years plus. So these guys are the OGs of the OGs. It's a blessing to have these guys on the podcast. I wanted these people to talk about their experiences. So, but before we get into that, we're going to introduce our guests. So I guess Mobius, you can go first. You can tell us about who you are. And, yeah, that's pretty much it. Tell us who you are. Tell us about yourself.
So I'm Mobius. A lot of people know me as Mobius from TCDL 2007, 2014. I hosted pretty much a tournament that's supposed to be annual, but it's not. I've been around since AOL. My first handle there was Covert, and then from there was like Sabihi Myth. So I have from CompuServe and up. I've been playing in an RPG chat, Anime League, Shin. That I've been around since like '98. That's like the oldest file I have. You spoke about this before, so I'm just gonna keep it there. Any year earlier than that, and I'll debate that. So that'll be me. I've been role playing fighting for a very long time, and been hosting tournaments at least not like accumulative for a decade, but about a decade. So that's my resume.
Wow. Okay. Oh, that's awesome, man. Would you like to introduce some of your friends who have joined too?
Okay, so right here, I'll have Deus Blade. He was the second runner-up of TCDL 2007, where he won $300 versus Decoy in the finals, who won $1,000. Deus Blade I've known since 2006, and it was Anime League, and we met through Clan Nation. Deus Blade is a veteran fighter, and I'll let him introduce himself. Go ahead, man.
Okay.
My name's Deus. And call me Deus Blade. Used to be known as Alhazard way back when. Started playing online, play by post, RPing back in 1996. I got invited to my first RP forum by some friends I made while playing the world's first graphical MMORPG, Neverwinter Nights, that was included with AOL. And it was called the RP Society. From there, stuck around for a number of years. They had a ranking system, which I participated in. I met my mentor, Landford Delenix, and he taught me everything I know today about playing the game.
Wow. Okay. Awesome.
And he was in his 60s when I met him. And he was
no way.
Yeah, he really opened my eyes to a lot of shit. He came into it. He used to be playing RPing back in the, what was it? I believe he said the 60s. When it was.
Oh, no way.
Yeah,
he was role playing. Wait, what? Hold on.
Yeah,
we got to come back to that.
Well, you had the bulletin board systems that were popular at college campuses. That's what he was.
Like the Dungeons and Dragons, right? The Dungeons and Dragons type.
BBS.
BBS.
What you talking about? Like,
yep.
Got 80s. Okay.
Yeah,
wow,
and they.
No way.
Yeah, the RP Society, the first one I started on, that was actually, they had an integrated BBS and a GeoCities website. So that's where I ended up starting. Primarily, I've only ever played on forums. I played in AOL chats, from just dicking around. But from there were issues involving the staff for that site. They ended up shutting it down over differences in opinions, I guess would probably be the best thing to say. And from there, I kind of just we lost everything. The database got deleted, so you had years and years and years of writing content just obliterated in a second. So a lot of people ended up retiring. My master, he ended up retiring. I ended up becoming a drifter, and I went from one RP site to another. Through the course of this time span, I ended up meeting people like Reno and Court, Draco, Emic, a lot of big names from the past. I competed in various tournaments. I've been in cash prize tournaments before. The Tournament of Ages, which was hosted by Glorious Final Fantasy. They were a PHP BB website, I believe. And then eventually ended up meeting Mobius during my time spent at Anime League.
Yeah, Anime League. Anime League.
I'd spent a long time in the Clan Wars. Up until things started to go kind of wonky with people shutting themselves off and closing off communities and doing their own thing. And find myself here, just relic from the past, still kicking.
Oh, hi, well, welcome. I think we have one more guest. I think her name is. What did she go by? What did she go by?
Luna.
Luna? Okay, Luna. Would you like to tell us some things about you? When you started roleplay and just some of the experiences you have as a role player.
Definitely. Basically, I'm from the other side of the internet as these two. I was over in MSN chat back at 1996, 97 is about the oldest I could say. I could go back as far. I was in, once MSN chats were closing down, we were already transitioning to groups, and then they closed groups down back in about 2007, I think. There's a whole Wikipedia. We had a Wikipedia war where we're turning things on and off and changing text and subtitles and writing about the war between two roleplay review groups and who had the better graphics, things like that. So I was not only on the graphics side, I was also on the writing side, and I've just been kind of lurking around since then. I've hung out with new players that are 18, 19 years old that are like trying to roleplay and do the stuff we did on Discord now, and it's just it's its own little weird conundrum because they want to keep things short and simple while I'm a forum role player. I love the forum format, but I'm also used to the chat format, and I've done speed fighting, I've done forum fighting, but they don't even want to fight. They just want to sit there and do nothing, and I'm like, no, it's boring. So,
all right, well, okay, yeah.
Yep.
All right. Oh well, welcome, guys. This is a very special moment for me personally, because I've been roleplay fighting for since 2006, and that's when I first started. And I also started in, the chat rooms where everything was pretty much simple, to the point. There wasn't a lot of formal writing. There wasn't a lot of extensive writing. But when I came to Kick, that's when I left the chat and came to Kick. Even though it's not formal, it's a chat-based platform. They was allowed to write more extensively, and I realized that, and I was like, wow, this is like kind of up my alley because I can express myself without someone saying, oh, you're writing too much. This is not a science project, yada yada yada. So coming to Kick was a good thing for me. I was allowed to express myself to my heart's content, and so I started to run into different fighters and stuff like that, and different scenarios. This is where we can talk about later. This is where that's where I got the idea, or first heard the idea about new world, old world. I heard about tiers. I heard about different rule sets, whatever. Because everything where I came from, everything was pretty much like an innate understanding. Everybody fought the same, everybody did the same thing. There was no deviation from what we was fighting under. But when I came to a different area, that's when everything started to become new to me. So all I did was just research, ask people what this was, and put my own interpretation through a consistent mindset, and it came with different interpretations of what people do in the modern time. So I guess we can talk about some of those things if that's cool with you guys.
I was hoping to touch on that. We spoke about this before, but I'll definitely retread this. I want to know exactly what decade it's the starting point and beginning point of the epoch of like old world and new world, because like I googled it a little bit and I always come back to here, so I'm kind of I ask people around and nobody I know knows these terms either, so it has to be something that had come from Cake or from you, and I'm kind of curious like what. Okay, so at least
you got me on that one. I don't know.
So what? Okay, fine. So let's forego the idea of where the terminology comes from. What is old world exactly? Like, what is?
I would think old world would be considered your style. Like, I would say your style as far as like the style that was being used back in the day, back in your day. I would consider that's old world, like formal style role play. You know, as far as like the technicalities of what to do, what not to do, that is up for interpretation. But I think old world meant old world, old style role play, whereas new world means like new style role play. You know, all these different types of sciences. Again, you got to be, you know, and we can talk about the Trekkies too. You know, like the Trekkies, as you were saying, that they added precise measurements, but it wasn't a mandate. It wasn't mandated. You know, but the new world, there's
for their role playing it was, but then when you came to like tavern role play, then it was either was or wasn't. It didn't matter. That part, yeah, it wasn't mandated. But among their kind, like you played with them. Hell yeah, they will want citation like an episode. What flavor of quantum torpedo or photon torpedo they were thinking of? If you're using phaser, laser disruptor, here and there, blah, 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 all that crap. But in terms of like tavern roleplay, regular play by post, if you were to go to like a tavern place or like some other roleplay, they wouldn't truly emphasize on it, but it gave you leverage if you knew what you were doing. So people did do it. It just wasn't mandated. So it was just something people who had an idea how to like implement something like, I don't know, joules as a conversion for watts. They would then be held up above other people who didn't know how to do that. So somebody saying they're at medium range will fall on a favor if somebody says I'm like 20 meters away from you. So I mean, right. So I think old world is using those references. I'm mid range, or I'm at striking distance, or I'm running at a moderate speed. I think those that language is old world language. You know, like you were saying.
It's beginner language.
It wasn't exactly old world language. It's more like if the person can't formulate a numeric base of where they were, then they'll just use words to describe that. That's
right. That's right.
I would argue that it's something of a false dichotomy. This old world, new world, the notion that, because that assumes that things have changed. Things haven't really changed. You had stuff that was happening back in the 90s is stuff you can see still happening today. Now, you can see the only real difference is settings and whether or not the group that you're in is using rules that either they created themselves or where they got their rule set from. Now, once upon a time, when you had more of a, because the internet's a huge place, but like you had through networking and people through word of mouth and everyone cross playing with each other, especially during the whole clan war era and stuff like that. There was a mutually agreed upon universal rule set that everyone played by, and that was, I think that might be what you are thinking of in terms of old world, because if we were to distinguish between what is different between now and then, the main difference I have observed is nowadays you find a lot of people trying to reinvent the wheel, where they come up with their own terms for things, they come up with their own mechanics for stuff. There was one place I went to where, I shit you not, I lost a fight even though I took the head off of the guy I was fighting, because his death scene, how he wrote his death scene, gave him extra points. And so the judge ruled that he was the winner. So I'm just like, great, you just gave the win to a corpse.
Yeah.
Good job.
Hold on. To be fair though, we saw that shit back in RR though, like in Role Players Realm back in.
Yeah, but they're part of the problem though, because when I went to Anime League, it was part of the same epidemic that I was seeing everywhere else. It was just that you had more people there, and the more popular some of those places become, like Anime League was a popular place. There were a lot of people that went there. That popularity gives credence because all of the old shit no longer exists.
Yeah.
So in the absence of the sites and the systems that they used to exist before, because either websites getting devoured by other hosting sites like Tapatalk, like what they're doing now, or like hosting service like Envision Free, fucking just like dying off, or Avid Gaming dying off.
IPBS boards.
Yeah, you got all these sites, they disappear, so people lose access to all that knowledge. All the work that people put together, the accumulation of knowledge over years of playing the game, gone in instance, and ends up leading people to create, they create these new systems and everything, like what was it, momentum RPing or some shit like that. Momentum sparring. Or the show like with RR, where like a judge gets to determine how powerful you are based on how much they like you or some shit like that.
Yeah, it was like you get
what?
Yeah, no.
What?
Back in the day, back in the day, for at least RR, it wasn't always like that everywhere, but for RR's sake, or for them, they will give you a power level rating from 1 to 10, and that is supposed to be determined by not how well you write your profile, but what's in your profile. So if you have like an army, you have to see superpowers here, you can bend reality, then they scale you off of that, which is a lot better than what they end up doing, where if you get the right judge and you know who he is, he'll give you a 10 and you'll have a profile sheet the size of your fist. It was like, what is this? And yeah, it was really bad. It was really bad.
And they would give you points just because you know the judge. You know the judge, and that's your friend and your buddy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Nah, that's crazy. That is not roleplay. I don't know what that is, but it ain't roleplay fighting. I know that.
No, but that's the thing. But that's the thing. To you, that's not role playing, but to them, that was role playing. And that was what they were pushing.
That's strange.
And then you have new generations coming into that, and they see this, and they're, this is how things are. This is how things have always been.
Yep.
There's no one to explain to them, no. This is not how things have always been. So in all seriousness, that is the only distinction I would draw between what is different now and what was different back then.
I'll keep it a buck on that. Even back then, like people we like from RPG chat's perspective and Althanis and all them, we consider those guys fringed anyway. Even then, we looked at them in their unorthodox styles, they called it, because they can auto hit you. So they have something called closed style, open style, and what that will do is that if you play closed style, they can auto hit you. If you play open style, then you actually play T1. And we looked at that shit like, we ain't doing that, homie. like they'll come into our website, you're not as good as we are. Okay, cool, get the fuck out. Like we don't care about you. But unfortunately, as they said, because they eventually hit popularity in 2007 and up, and there's no one's going to contest that, because all the people who can't contest that had already left because of our own problems. But again, I don't know if that's still around, but I don't see that this generation having it.
Or the auto hidden thing.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I haven't seen any of that. Like, people steer away from, like, if you auto hit, then like you are the bottom of the food chain. Like, you're at the bottom of the totem pole. Like, we do not associate people who love to auto hit. We don't associate people who like to auto hit, who like to use point systems, who like to roll dice. Like, we don't do none of that. It's just strictly like, this ain't Yu-Gi-Oh, bro. Like, we don't do none of that.
It is Yu-Gi-Oh. It is Yu-Gi-Oh. It's only Yu-Gi-Oh if you're reading card effects, because card effects and role playing with
that's different. Right.
That's the only similarities we have, and then you have to phase it.
Right.
Initiate
right.
this.
But we're not flipping the coin. We're not rolling dice. We're not doing that. Right. But some people fight like that. Rare people, like you said, it's an unorthodox form of fighting, but it's not a mainstream thing. People don't do that. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. With this kind of leads to my next question, or something I'm curious about. Because you guys mentioned that y'all didn't have like the new world, old world stuff, and I can understand it. But the reason why these terms exist is to have different styles of fighting. So it's not one way to fight, but it's different styles of fighting. So if you ever see somebody post up and say, oh, old world T1, this rule set, 48 hours to post, yada yada yada. So it's like a certain I can't explain, like a certain degree or a certain caliber to fight under.
I have to kind of disagree on that. Only from this perspective.
No, I'm asking you guys, did y'all have that back in the day? Did y'all have that? Right. Okay. Right.
As we said before, to us is like timeless. Like the game from then is the game of now. The only time and Dion, I think Dion had it right. Back in the day, you had to respond to somebody's attack as it is, right? You were given no real room for any alteration. It wasn't until that same time period people discovered that for you to block a sword coming down vertically to cleave your fucking face in half, you have to actually anticipate the action, raise up your own retaliation, whether it be a block or attack, to intercept that. You cannot just take the sword coming down from the midpoint where you have no time to do anything. Otherwise, you get hit. There's no way.
Right.
That means in order to block it properly, I have to be given a time frame in which I can permitted to look at the telegraph move, make my adjustment for my character to anticipate that however which way I like. And that's where interception meta came in. You don't have to just block or dodge. Now you can attack. And then that's the only evolutionary point. From that point on, you don't have to respond to it as it is. You can now intercept poor or poorly thought out slow motions, like anything that's like an action that's too slow, too much build up. You could raise the shield, you could poke him while you're doing it, or you could just lunge at him. He doesn't have to come down with the sword completely. That's been around since forever. So like again, like that's the last evolutionary step. Everything else is like things we figured out through the course of the game, but we never had like an old world, new world. Like nobody ever said that. Like maybe the thing that us veterans do. Let's say if I wanted to fight Daysblade, right? Me and him have this whole thing about being a brand. Now, I call that's the terms I use. Daysblade wouldn't use that term, but he understands what I mean when I say that. A little wrestling thing here. We would agree on not a rule set, a preset. We will only agree on specific rules between each other that we want to see in our fight. So I won't go to him and be like, hey, fight me at our rule set. It'll be like, okay, no auto hitting. Cool, we've got check mark. No God modding. Okay,
I see. I got you.
We check it off individually. What is we want to see? We don't go by old rule, new rule. That doesn't exist to us.
Right.
As an addendum to that, like that's something that might be your approach. From me, it would be just find me in the Omniverse. Come at me.
I mean cool. Yeah, that's cool. No, but we both know that it will eventually come down to what it is that we want to see in our fight to keep it fair for both of us. You know that. None of us are Leroy. We're not going to jump in head first into anything.
Well, I mean, the rules keep it like as long as no one's breaking the 3 rules.
3 rules, right? But we would never say something like this preset here, that preset here, old world, new world. That would never that's not a conversation.
The rules have always been the rules. It's like if you understand the 3 rules, which it's kind of hard not to, it's there's no issue. In fact, from where I come from, the emphasis was always on self-moderation. Mods rarely ever got called in. In fact, you typically wanted to avoid calling in mods because since a lot of the places where I played at, everything was handled ICly. So if somebody fucked up in a thread, mod steps in. They're not stepping in at, with any kind of OOC capacity. They're going to step in with like an all-powerful, all unbeatable character, godlike figure, and they're just like gonna like reality warp your ass and do like whatever the fuck they want and whatever in accordance to how bad you fucked yourself with the rules. So and aside from the 3 rules, there were character regulations. So like the very base, like one example of a very basic regulation for a character was every character has to be able to be capable of being killed by conventional means. Yeah. So like now, if you have like a rock golem, obviously you're not gonna use a toothpick to like kill the golem. You're gonna have to figure, but somewhere on that golem, somehow, way, shape, or form, there has to be a way of using a mundane object or some mundane conventional means of being able to actually kill it.
Yeah, you couldn't load or stack the golem with like all sorts of immunities, or like I call regulated weaknesses, where it's like you could only attack this one gem on him, but the rest of him is invincible. Where's the one gem at? Who knows? Like you couldn't do that back then.
Yeah, that doesn't count as a weakness.
No, it doesn't.
But in today's day and age, people use that type of concept where it's like they become unbeatable, but you got to find this one shard that's really tiny and it's hitting on my body. You don't know where it's at. How the hell are we going to know where it is in the story? No one knows. So
bring it on. Bring it on. I love it. Bring it on.
I will elaborate with this though. Back in the day, we didn't, and I told you before, we didn't have judges like that in competition with AOL. If the most you'll get like a public opinion, but it won't be like a poll. It'll be like, since everybody already plays the game enough, they know the rules, they know what is acceptable. So if somebody ignores your attack, like blatantly, like if I attack you and you're still sipping tea, you do nothing about it, then everybody there is gonna be like, you died. That's it. Like they don't want to hear that. Now, if it's like a little nuance type of deal, they'll read it back, and then everybody throws in their 2 cents, and then it's like the community kind of regulated itself if it had to come to that. But we didn't have judging, and I think Deus knows this. Judging wasn't really a thing until like, at least the way we see it now. It wasn't a thing until like 2000s.
07.
Okay, 07. I haven't seen that shit since the 2000s. Like 2002, I wasn't even seeing that until like later on, where arena-based combat had like a judge somewhere or somebody like a friend there buried in the middle, like in the fucking pocket, ready to like launch him out. Like, okay, I got this guy here. He'll judge your fight, and it's like, I don't like where this is going.
Yeah, it's like that now. You can't fight without a judge just because it's like, for some odd reasons, it's like people fight to look, I won. Nobody really fights anymore to just like between the two parties, two fighters, say, look, we know you messed up in this area, therefore we know that you lost. You don't have to go out and share to the audience that you lost. You know deep down inside you lost. But I guess because there's so many different types of styles, so many different types of loopholes, and these rule sets aren't as consistent as they can be, the judge is there to have some type of regulation or some type of authority to say, look, you did mess up in this area, you died. But again, some judges, like you were saying earlier, some judges are like the friends of so-and-so. They don't know the ins and outs of roleplay fighting, so they're just making some arbitrary judgment when they don't even know half the story of what happened. They're just saying that, to the best of their knowledge, or not even to the best of their knowledge, just being biased because they want to, side with their friend. So judges, today's and days, judges are pointless. I'm saying they help, on paper, but they don't help in the actual reality of what's going on, which is sad, man.
I think in an exhibition type of deal, even then, I want to say they don't help. I'll as a person who usually judges himself, when it's a tournament thing, I will say that it all depends on enforcement. Like, I think that if you're gonna have a judge, that judge should also present rulings that he's made in the past for players to vet. It shouldn't be like, okay, I nominate that guy.
I like that. That's a good point.
Because when RPG Guild in 2008, what's his name? No, 2018. Rilla, the moderator of the arena, wanted to host a tournament, right? And the TCDL, one of the many other tournaments that couldn't hold up to me. But I wanted to join his tournament because he was doing a tournament, and I'm like, if I do a tournament and I win, I could prop myself up. That's a big deal. It's a business move. But before I joined, I asked him, do you have previous tournaments for me to read so I can see what kind of rulings you make? And he couldn't provide that. And because he couldn't provide that for me, I said, I'm not going to participate. And I think that if you're going to have judges, I'm not saying they're bad or good. It could swing either way. If you have a really good judge, your players are probably upset that they lost. If you have a bad judge and you have good players, they got fucked. There's the only middle ground is to take a judge and by their resume, their previous experiences, and you vet them that way. And you make the determination as a player whether or not you want that person to be the judge of your fight. And that in itself opens up a whole can of worms because that person could be picking him because he's a friend. It can go either way. Personally, the only way you're going to go about this with judging is you have to first have at least the rulings opened. Some judges don't even fucking do that. Like, well, he lost. Why? Then you have to go to like a private area where no one can see you, and then you argue your point there. Then one of you guys is going to be posting up that log publicly. Like, you see, he fucked me over. Instead, you could just post exactly why. It doesn't matter what they say privately. What matters is their ruling, and from there you throw, let God sort it out. Because At the end of the day, two people arguing is not going to come to agreement. Like, if they said the sky is blue and I say it's light blue, and me and him are never going to see eye to eye, that's it. It doesn't go anywhere.
But it's pink.
A judge is there. A judge is there sometimes to kind of like, if it kind of looks a little blue, it's more like a cobalt. And then me and Dave look at him, and then we clothesline that guy. But at least it's impartial. Hopefully, maybe I'm wrong or maybe he's wrong. But the idea of a third party is not bad completely. But I can see where people would think that because sometimes we've all been fucked before. Everybody here has done wrong.
And my personal experience is the only time you really expected to see a judge was during tournaments. In tournaments, you kind of you had to have a judge. But the in terms of like if you were anywhere else outside of a tournament, if you tried to call a judge, a lot of people would say that's kind of a bitch move you're making there, buddy. Like you like the biggest force that really kept people in line was street cred, your reputation. You always wanted to protect your reputation. If you had to go crying to the mods, you were treated as such the biggest bitch beta boy ever.
Yeah, that's kind of true. That is true.
Because it was like, well, what the fuck you mean? You getting you really need to call a mod in here?
Wow.
Yeah, sometimes it's true though. Sometimes it's true. Sometimes you do need to do that. Like you can meet some guys who he'll only role play like a paragraph and completely ignore everything you do, and he refuses to budge on anything. And
that's fine. No, that's fine. They could totally do it. Like that one guy, I threw a fucking knife at him. He did this whole nonchalant thing, like he was fucking drinking some soda. And it was completely ignores the fact that the dagger was just thrown in his fucking eyeball. And it's so my next post, I'm just standing there, and I point out in the in the narration, I say, there's this there's this crimson liquid slowly pouring over the floor. I wonder where that could be coming from. And so he just kept doing the post like it didn't happen. So then I ended up just walking away from it, and I was like, I'm good. The fight's over. And he would PM me, but it's what you doing? I was like, what? The fight's over. You died, my butt. And he was just like, well, wait a second. I don't remember. You didn't see the knife coming at you? It's no. Wait, you didn't read that in my post? No.
You see, that's where sometimes, man, you have to have it officiated. I know it's a bitch move. It could be considered a bitch move, but you have 90 people saying the same thing and looking at that something's up with that.
But everyone knew though. Everyone knew though. He tried to call in a mod. I'm just bro, you're only going to make it worse for yourself.
Yeah.
You don't want to call in a mod. Just take it. Just eat that. Just eat it. It's done. It's over with. I'm not going to post anymore. The fight can just stay as is. You can do your pretty little thing that you're doing there with your writing and stuff like that. Cool. But but it just let it die. End it gracefully. Just ignore it. Let it roll off your shoulder. Have fun next time. Better go next time.
If he's gonna shrug it off, might as well shrug off the whole fucking thing, right? Fuck.
Exactly.
Be open to
I know in today's day and age, people actually use judges as a means to put their logic or their ideas on top, or let their ideas supersede the ideas of another. Say, look, even the judge agrees with what I'm saying, therefore you're wrong. So they actually use a judge to reinforce their own their own ideas of their fights with them. So back in the day, getting a mod was yo, you getting a mod? Come on, bro, you really need one. But now it's yo, I got a mod on my side, I got a judge on my side. Now we both coming at you. Now I'm going to win because even the judge agrees. So it's kind of like a back or flip flop of view of needing a judge, which is pretty interesting because it can show us how role-play fighting shifted, whereas before people was shying away from these ideas, but now people are actually implementing those ideas and being dependent on these ideas. And one of those things I mentioned was what the rule says. Everybody pretty much just had an already understanding of what was permissible, what was not. But now people saying, we go do X, Y, and Z. This rule said this time limit, this world. It's none of that is necessary. I think because, like you were saying, you can have presets, but I think people made those rule sets to avoid having to reinstate these presets where it's like, look, we're just gonna follow this rule set. X, Y, and Z is already there. Just follow this. So it's like now it becomes more like not like it becomes more people know it more. People can know what's in, right. Exactly. People can know what's in the rule set. So I don't have to reinstate every type of preset rule that's going to be there. I can just say, look, we're going to follow HO, or we're going to follow virtual warfare, we're going to follow this. We just everybody know what's already in there. And I
think that's a product of the 2005s and up, when maybe a little older than that. I remember realistic melee was a thing too back in the day, but again, that was like a very fringe people, and not a lot of people did that. People want to their fucking powers. They don't care about you thinking how good you are. Like they'll smack you with like, I don't know, a laser if they could. It wasn't until like the mid 2000s, Dave, you can correct me on this one. It wasn't until the mid 2000s where people cared more about different styles like RN, URM, UM, power, non-power, crap like that. Where I think then the presets started coming in, because back in the day we didn't have that, so a lot of us just played the way we always played, powered set. The power level is not Dragon Ball Z. That's usually like the benchmark of where you don't want to be. You look at that and you're like, no, we don't do that. We don't do that over here. Like that's how it was. It wasn't until later on where people kind of like reinventing the wheel, trying to put their name on the placard of I'm the guy who made this. Where you see a lot of those styles start. Right.
Look how smart I am. I know all this stuff. I made this by myself, and look how knowledgeable. Look how much of a roleplay fighter I am. That I'll be able to do X, Y, and Z. And look at me. I'm there. I'm reached my peak. I reached the mountaintop. It's more so. It's like people are using roleplay fighting to boost themselves up rather than using roleplay fighting to boost roleplay fighting. You know what I'm saying? Like people use it as a means to make themselves look good rather than trying to roleplay fight to make the art look good in itself so people can join and stuff like that.
Yeah. But it's always been though. But I think if you were to quantify the difference between now and then, I guess it's because people want the leverage. So if I got a judge, and it's officiated, so I'm the man, you see, and one of those kind of deals. And again, with presets and styles that came from the explosion, everybody wanted to do their own thing because nobody wanted to do the thing, and that's how. I mean, that's the separation really between then and there, because like back then, again, we had those, but it wasn't like nobody gave a shit.
So I mean, ask what type of limitations did y'all have? Like, what was the limit of power that you guys can exhibit?
That was depending on where you were.
That's an open-ended question. Like, it's really considering the character. It's what limitation you put on your character on my end. I know that Mobius is different. He's not going to limit his characters like I limit mine. Deus is different. He's not going to do the same thing I do. Yeah. We're all different. That's part of the great part of role-playing.
But, and then if you want to go like further with the rules, it depends where you were. Like, if I were to go to like... the RP Society where Reno and his friends are basically, I'm referencing. If I were to go to those guys, they don't mind going a little more crazy with like the city block destroying tech. But if I were to go to like RPG chat, the only time they want to see New York in flames is from a narrative perspective, not because I did an attack that put New York in flames in one attack. So like, and then if I go to like a face claim website, and I don't know if anybody knows what a face claim is, where you go to like a website where you go to those places that claim actual actors and actresses from like movies as your character, playing your character. Then you go to those places, and sometimes they don't want powers at all. They're like minuscule little amounts of power, like enough fire to like boil your coffee, like that type of shit. If I go to Valocray, they have prep systems, so you couldn't do anything without prepping, and that itself is a power cap.
You say you can or you can't?
You can't. So if you go if you go to Valocray right now, well, I don't know about now, but back in the day, up to a certain point, you go to Valocray and you want to do if you want to do like a beam or something that took out like half a skyscraper, you're gonna have to prep that, and God knows how many preps they want you to do for that. So like it was one of those. It depends where you are. It depends where you are.
But I think it would depend on where you're from. I only ask that because I know the next question I want to ask is about
Well,
OP. You know,
before you
right?
but before you go,
Yeah,
move
go
on,
ahead.
just the it also largely depends on the type of RP you were in. So like there was the RP fighting, arena stuff. Then you have the SRP, story role plays, where you have like a GM who's the main focus there is the story, and in that case, it's like the GM has full control over what kind of like powers you see and stuff. And then you have like the clan RPs or the Omniverse RPs, and in that case, it was every thread is considered a location. The players are the ones who expand the world of the Omniverse by each time they create a new thread. Threads are locations that are set in time and a timeline that are consistent with all other threads. So you can't be in two threads at the same time. You can only be in one. Right. You want to go to another one, you have to leave that one. But in terms of power, you could be this godlike being. You could have the ability to do like a Frieza and just like wipe out a planet. You could have the ability to do that. The difference was you weren't allowed to do that. If you tried to do that, then you would end up provoking the admins, who would then come in with their own absolute being, who there was no way you were going to outpower them, and then they would end up dealing with you within the game itself.
Right, because that's what I was going to ask. I was going to say, well, as far as the game itself, like inside the role play, what would stop a character from exhibiting their full potential? If they can do a Frieza and they try to blow up the whole planet, what would stop them from doing it? But you already answered, which was the Maw would come down like as some type of god or whatever and actually stop them from doing it in game. It's not like they get banned.
MSN groups is worse. They just delete your thread.
Yeah, that's one way of doing it. Many ways of doing it. No, every place handled that kind of differently though. MSN will delete it, RPG chat, they'll mock you, ridicule you, lock your thread, and then you get blacklisted. So what happens when you get blacklisted? I mean, yeah, you can play, but no one will play with you.
For us it was always for us it was always OOC was actually frowned upon. Everything was expected to be done in character. There was no section for out of character. People were not encouraged to speak with each other out of character. Everything was done in game. Everything was settled in the game. Now, for me, when I eventually got added to the faculty for RP Society, I had created a character, because I had the ability to do so at that point. I created a character called Lamedia, who was the aspect of order for all creation. And literally what would happen is, if you tried pulling a Frieza, all time would just stop around you. Your character would be totally, able to move, aware of what was going on, and you would just see this massive sword the size of a sun plunge through the planet that you were just trying to nuke, and my character would just appear and just look at you, hold up a blank card, turn it over, and all of a sudden you were on it. And then he would slash through it, and then all of a sudden your entire character just got removed from existence. Everything that you did in that timeline completely erased. The time of the thread got pushed back to the point before you did any of those shenanigans. At which point crazy. Everything would resume as normal, and every character in the thread who had seen the character would suddenly have no knowledge of the character. It was just gone. Right,
everything was rewinded. I got you.
And then I would go to your character profile and delete it.
Why? What?
That's extra, bro. We didn't do that. In CompuServe, for example,
sounded like a really cool Final Fantasy scene.
Not fair.
In CompuServe, we'll just be like, "Yo, mass ignore that guy," and that's it. Done. Person's ignored for good. And AOL was no different. Mass ignore. That was it. And
it was all about who was on duty at the time and who caught your ass doing the thing.
Yeah, it's all different places handled it. However, when we started actually like crossing over. So each one of us went to RPG Chat is a good example because it itself had its own native population, but it also started harboring people from everywhere. So people from like Anime League used to come over there, from Shin, from anime forums, something like anime lyrics even. Some people came from that. Cyber Chat, which is Adapte, he came from. Deus Blade came from RPG Society. At some point, some of his friends came over. Not him, but some of his friends like Leviathan and all them. Well, I wouldn't say his friend, but one of his people he knew. I'll say somebody he knew, an acquaintance, I guess.
Associates, yeah.
Associates came over. And what happened with the power scaling there is that every place had their own power scaling. But there was, I would say, not an overlap, but there was a kind of like a soft, not universally agreed. We didn't all say in a council, like, hey, we agree to this. No, nobody did that. It was more like it was an understanding among the players at the time. You don't go past a certain point. And we just didn't. And we see people who tried. So it wasn't something like it wasn't tried. It was tried. We see people who tried to go a little bit beyond, like, coloring outside the lines. And then the social repercussions from that deterred the others from doing the same. So it kept everything in line. Things like Gurren Lagann, for example, you could have a drill that pierces through the heaven. It wasn't a story thread, I don't care. But if it was like in a fight and we're fighting clan versus clan stuff, and you want to like pierce the galaxy I'm in to pierce my planet to destroy me and everybody in it, it's not gonna work. Nobody's gonna rock with that. We'll tell you, oh, CD, you sure about this? You want to do this? You want to edit your post? We wait for you. If not, you get mocked immediately. You'll be a whole bunch. It depends. It really depends. But there was a time period. If I was to Anime League and I went to not Atlantis because they did another thing. I went to Aoni, Give Up Already, Anime League, all that crap. I went with Heaton. I went with my main character. I don't have to make many adjustments. I can go here, and because I'm within the power levels, nobody bothered me. But, again, it came with the time where we already knew. Again, Dragon Ball Z was a good reference because everybody always brought up Goku. If you're not as strong as Goku, then we don't have to have then the debate becomes nuanced. That's pretty much how it went back. They were kind of simple. A lot of us were simple then. That was, that's how power levels were handled then, at least within the 2003s and up. Then people were like, we don't hit that mark. Then, of course, people started pushing it, but that's 2007 and 8. That's when things got kind of...
The Chud DBZ versus the absolute Chad Yu Yu Hakusho, though.
Oh my god. Yeah, we love Yu Yu Hakusho, though. That's...
Yeah, I used to watch that show. Yeah,
it's actually really good. It explains tournament settings really well. Dark Tournament was a bad arc, but it explains...
I agree with that, though. I agree with
tournament settings really well. But for anybody who's never been in it.
I would say, though, we can leave that one because I know when me and Luna say Dark Tournament is the worst arc, it'll open up a can of worms. So let's move on to the next question. So we'll definitely touch that one day.
I think you guys pretty much answered a little bit about what's overpowered. So you guys mentioned like you can't do certain things, so that's cool. You guys can do certain. In our modern age, we can't do certain things, but being overpowered is pretty much based off of like exceeding a rule set. And sometimes not even exceeding a rule set, it's just exploiting loopholes.
Oh yeah.
That's like exploiting rules that's not really there. So people exploit them. So that's overpowered. So I guess, just to trying to figure out like what does overpower mean to you? What would overpower mean to you?
It's not what you are, it's what you do, honestly.
Yeah.
For example, like if you go and do the thing where you blow up the planet and stuff like that, you got to bear in mind you just broke one of the main rules. You're god moding. Like, can you imagine how many other threads were based on that planet that now you just broke into, you just destroyed without even any of them being aware of it? So you can't, if you're doing something, it has to stay within the confines of whatever location you're in. You can't be doing something where you're pausing time, or you're causing a black hole to devour the planet, or you're launching a nuke that's going to wipe out half a continent, because you're going to be affecting other players' threads, and that's no bueno. That completely breaks that causes a breakdown of the system. So you can have all kinds of, nobody wants to, the whole point of RPing is supposed to be a liberating experience. So it's the only limitation should be your creativity. You can make whatever you want. If you want to be some sort of god, cool. No one's going to stop you from being a god. If you want to have the ability to fucking like wipe out an entire species, cool. That's cool. All right, it's fine. Cool.
But just don't mess the role play up for other people. Pretty much.
Yeah,
Just saying,
just don't
mess it up.
It's all about the social contract. The social contract is key. You gotta respect what other people are doing. You can't. That's what the 3 rules are. There's no god moding, which is you can't control other people's characters.
That's right.
No power gaming, which means you can't assume superiority. If you have 2 strong characters, you can't all of a sudden assume just I'm stronger than you. No. The whole power level thing. No. You can't do that. That's no.
We can't do that here either.
Yeah, and then the whole no metagaming thing, it's like you can't
auto hitting too. Auto hitting. That's the
technically auto hitting falls under god moding because at that point you're forcing the person to take a hit, so you're acting as god in that sense.
They kind of woven everything. Yeah, it's like most of them are woven together as one unit, but they're just separate terms, describe separate incidences. Yeah, I completely agree with that.
The no metagaming too. That's another thing as well. Which something back in the day was really, really emphasized on. It kind of stopped around the time that people went to forums a lot more. Then metagaming kind of got a little out of hand. But
now, so before you continue with the metagame, I do want to mention this. Like in this day and age, we don't have threads. We don't have worlds. We don't have none of that. It's like I make a character, you make a character. We go by a certain rules. We jump into a platform that we're able to write in, and we just fight. So when it comes down to blowing a planet,
I'll stop you there because that is you do have forums. Anime spaces are like extremely fucking popular. Like those things have been banging since like 2010, and even before then, like Bleach sites, Naruto sites. You guys still have those. Those things don't exist.
When I say we, I mean like the general population of how people fight. A lot of people don't go into like forums and try to fight. They rather make a character, go by a particular rule set, and do whatever they want to do. So that's when I say we, I mean like them. You know what I mean? Like so, when it comes down to like blowing up worlds, we have separate limitations. You didn't mention realistic melee. We got realistic melee, unrealistic melee, moderate power characters, and another one is called creative power, which I made up just to do it. You can do whatever you want, but even PC, you still can't travel faster than like
that depends on tiers too, because then if you do power fighting, you usually get the question, okay, what's here? And then the tier is like ubiquitous because I can say high tier, it'll mean this, but then to you high tier is like something totally ridiculous. That in itself is like a whole.
I never understood the whole why anyone does do the tier system.
Nobody does.
It's like let's create a tier system for a game that is solely based on imagination. Yeah, there is no way this could possibly ever go wrong for anyone ever.
I think just give the ability to fight. I can't fight anyone who's realistic melee, that's regular human. I can't fight them because I'm a god. It's like there's no need for me to fight them. There's no reason for me to fight them if you're just going to be a god and I'm going to be a human, whatever. So I get it, but at the same time, it's just like it's kind of redundant. It's not needed. It's just a thing to say. Well, I have a character who only fights hand to hand, and I have a character who's a guy. So which character do I pick? I can pick a character for whatever limitation I'm going to fight under. I don't have to live as a character. I'm sure you guys had different characters. If not, then
well, actually, I don't know. He brings up a good point about that. Daysplay, I remember correctly. We had different characters then, but we never had them for like differing formats. But again, back then,
hold on. Yeah, I have 187 characters. Okay. Now the main reason I have all those characters, the main reason I have all those characters is because a lot of the places I went to were a lot of anime themed and a lot of like video game themed sites. Every time you go to a new place, you gotta roll up a new fucking character. Now, again, but that's theme. That's in universe. That's not omniverse. Those are specific, and a lot of that
universe. I got you.
Now a lot of that stuff is also a reason for why you see a lot of like people come up with their own rule sets and stuff today too. Because it's not like this isn't a new thing. It's just they were usually confined to like fan sites, which you have to give it to the anime and video game communities because they're really what popularized what we do, play by post RP.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even though if you were to argue that with like the Trekkies back then and the Lord of the Ring guys and all those dudes, they were like we're the start of the beginning at the end.
I don't fucking care about Trekkies. So I don't fucking care about them.
Hey, but I mean, arguably though, go ahead, Davis. But arguably, I would say though that it's like it comes with like the sword comes with no handle. You get a blade on both ends. So,
but well, I was just gonna say that like the when it comes to like who do you pick between the god or the you could still play as the god. Remember, you're RPing. There's no limit to what can be done in this setting. You can put on you can be like, okay, I'll fight you with my god character, and to do so to make things fair, here's this collar that I'll wear. And when I'm wearing this collar, it makes me mortal, and I have no access to any of my godlike powers. You can kill me, and I agree.
I agree with that. That's the way my mindset is like the same way. Like I grew up, for the lack of a better term, in thinking that I could be a god, but because I'm fighting other people who can't be on the same level as me, I gotta limit myself with a collar or with a necklace or whatever, so I can't exhibit all my powers. However, even if you have the slightest increment of having a greater power than what the limitation is calling you to have, you would be considered god mode, overpowered. So you can't say, well, I'm a god, but I wear a necklace makes me, a realistic melee. You can't do that. You're god mode.
I have to kill that. I'll tell you why.
I'm saying for us. This is for us, though. You know what I mean? For you, man, I agree with everything y'all saying.
On an objective level, I'm gonna tell you why. I'm gonna tell you on an objective level. It doesn't. The profile sheet, like let's say, for example, you come in with the guy. It doesn't matter if he's a god or not. What matters is whether or not he's playing by the rules.
They don't care about that.
No, here's a problem though with a lot of realistic melee people, and I say this every fucking time. I don't care. It's not realistic anyway. Like in real life, nobody is fair. Nothing's fair. Some guy is gonna have like a developed frontal lobe, or you're gonna have like Zika brain, or some person has greater bone density than you. You don't have upper body strength for some reason. When you came in with your mom's genetics, you have like thicker thighs than your arms. Some other person probably has like chicken legs or like a huge ass arm. Why? Because there's no parity. Realistic melee, a lot of realistic melee players create false parity. They create this thing where two people are even trajectories with even opportunities. You don't have that in real life. There's nothing real about it. It's a misnomer.
Yeah, I think I agree, but we know that's not what people are trying to call realistic. You know what I mean? Like, I get it, but it's like in that context, of course, it's not realistic. But we know realistic means like no powers, no supernatural speed, no none of that.
But all that in the character is fluff. So if the person is fighting you without any of that, and they have a reason, or they don't even need a reason, they could be like, I'm not using any of it, and they don't use it on you, then that godlike character profile is just flavor.
I would agree with that. I mean, I'm saying like, I would agree. Like you were saying, like it's not who you are, it's what you do in the fight.
Right.
So if you don't exhibit any type of godlike power and you actually play by the rules of that limitation, it should be fair game. But because people make characters for particular limitations, they will not accept it. I could be a guy, so I'm a guy, I wear a necklace, I'm RM. Like, no, you gotta have a regular character.
I think
your storylines, you say your storyline doesn't fit the description or limitation of a realistic person. You're a god.
Hold on. So you can't. I think that to me that's just autism, man. Like the only okay.
Listen, look, I'll make the rules, bro.
Well, hold on. My question to you would be: Do you think that's how things should be? Are you okay with the state of gaming in this genre being where you can't just roll up and with a god character have a collar on, be a total stuff like that, where people have to? Now, I'm asking you this because it's very important to understand that the way that the game works and the way that people think about the game and the way everyone interacts with one another, these are all cultural things. They're all based on social
cultural thing.
So if you want a world in which we can go back to how things used to be. We can. There's no rule. There's nothing written in stone anywhere saying we can't.
Good luck.
The only thing that's actually stopping us from getting there is
us ourselves, right?
Yeah, is people who just they refuse to either change or they refuse to break the box that their minds are trapped in. And for the player who takes issue with you, it's just like, no, it doesn't matter. You have to use a regular human to fight me, or else you can't play an art. No, that to me is unacceptable. That to me is unacceptable. It should. Everyone should be having fun, not doing this bullshit thing where like you got to fucking you got to make a whole other character shit for that stuff.
Nah,
it's like,
dude,
he's risking his
like
god
you were
character.
saying,
Like,
no, wait. Like he was saying, I wouldn't care because it's not who you are, it's what you do. If we're fighting realistic melee, and that's all that's being exhibited, like, why you care about who I am at the end of the day?
Exactly.
The roleplay fight shows a realistic, right? I wouldn't care. I completely agree with that, But because this is not my world, I'm accommodating, I'm conforming to their understanding of how I can fight them and win.
Yeah, no, I get that.
You know what I mean?
Let me expand that. What he's saying is that him personally wouldn't have a problem with that, but among the general population, they and their sensibilities wouldn't be able to process the information and wouldn't be able to process that concept. However, I'm gonna interject this from a tournament standpoint because I've had this problem too. Like on a real shit, and DS, you've seen this. I had a tournament where a person came in with 2 dragons, right? One of them was a girl who could turn into a dragon, and the other was her pet dragon. And their first thing everybody flipped out about was the fact that 2 dragons were in our profile sheet. How is it that my tournament holds to this power level and these rules if I have dragons in my profile?
I thought it was cool. I didn't want her to change anything.
Well, the main argument I always had was, she could say she has 2 llamas. It would make a difference. What can the dragons do? The dragon is a word. It's a word to describe a creature. That's it. There's no inherent properties to the dragon itself in a tournament setting. Whatever you put on the dragon has the properties of that. If I say I come in with a dragon in a tournament setting, it doesn't mean anything. It's the same thing as I come in with a gun. What kind of gun? What are we talking about here? Like, what does that mean? So these players can't flip. These players can't flip and have a conniption over perceptions and associations of thought, where the character or the phenomenon or the object itself has no meaning. So if I come in with a dragon, it's just a dragon. The dragon has no properties or anything intrinsic until I give it to it. Then you could argue that and the third, or if it belongs or not. So if a person comes in with a god character in a realistic melee, none of that means anything if it's not applicable. It's flavor. Mm-hmm. So, but I get you from your perspective, but that's their problem.
I think I would say we, because I'm part of the community too. I don't think we will. Well, I don't agree with it, so I can't say we. What you get? I'm trying to say. I don't think that you're right. I don't think that us, we, they, whoever. I don't think it matters that. I think they look more toward the story. If your story don't fit the description as a realistic person, you're not realistic. It doesn't matter what you do. It's who you are.
And then if it's
again, remember I talked about earlier about how we talked about the judges before. How before mobs was pretty much pushed aside, but now today judges is like, yo, I gotta have a judge, so they can say that I'm right too. Now it's the same thing again. It's the reverse. Like back in the day, it wasn't about who you were, it's what you did, but now it's about who you are rather than what you can do. So everything is pretty much getting reversed in some weird way.
If it's tonal, then yeah, I can't argue that. I'm a big fan of tone. If you keep tone, then fine. That's I agree with that. But but if from like a complete open, no other rules set, no house rules, because remember a lot of things are house rules. Yeah. So from a completely blank open slate, then it doesn't fucking matter. But if we're talking about tone, that's kind of like a house rule thing, and then that's a group thing. In which case, then I will agree on that. Then yes, but that's where it ends. That's like Only on
Listen,
tone.
bro, I don't make the rules, bro.
I mean, nobody does, but if it's on tone, if it's tonal, if it's a tonal issue, then yes, okay, fine.
For the record, I don't necessarily agree with every type of aspect of roleplay fighting of the modern age. I do not. That's why I have virtual warfare. This is why I make these secret errors and these exposed videos, because I don't agree with the method that's being used to determine whatever. So I lean more so on the side of the old style of you guys, of the styles of you guys. However, in order for me to be like a winner, or in order for me to like say, look, I am a good fighter, and here's why, I accommodate. I compromise my beliefs or my way of fighting to fit their description in order to fight them at their own game or beat them at their own game. So that's what I've been doing, for the past couple of years. So that's
fair. No, that's fair. Yeah. That's absolutely fair.
That's only. Besides that, I would have been doing my own thing. Trust, I would have been doing something totally different. It's part of I got to compromise if I want to fight other people.
No, that's a fact. That's a fact.
Yeah.
That's a fact.
Yeah. So I mean, we pretty much covered a lot. We covered. Well, you gave us an introduction of who you are actually. We talked about
this one, don't we? Like the metagame one, or do we?
Yeah. We talked about being OP a little bit. But yes, talk about metagame. Like, what is?
Can we not? Can we just not? Please?
Can we just save that for another day?
I don't. I'm not for whatever.
Honestly,
because we're kind of close. We're kind of close to my time anyway. So
true.
Okay, how about this? All right, how about this? We can say that for another time. But I know. Mobius talked about rights of a role player, and that's very important. I think a lot of these new players need to hear about that. So if you want to, share what that really means, and we can also actually chime in with our.
Let me make it as brief as possible, because I went over it better when we were talking about it before, but I could easily do this. So, all right. So in this is role playing is a type of game where it's about who is more knowledgeable than the other person about the game itself, right? Among us veteran players like me and Dave's play, we'll argue over semantics all fucking day long, but at least me and him know, so that's fine. But if you're a new guy starting in, and you don't know anything, then you're gonna have some asshole who's always gonna know more than you. He's gonna take advantage of you, take you for a ride. So what he'll do is that he'll either withhold information that he himself knows or doesn't know, or he'll give you bad information, and then from there on, you become a target for like an easy victory from him. So what player rights means is that everybody in this game has a right, no matter what. T1 rule set, and you can't auto hit. That applies to both your opponent and to you. As much as you can't auto-hit him, he can't auto-hit you. You can't metagame him, but he can't metagame you. You can't god mod him, but he can't god mod you. And that's what I mean by rights. You are not privileged to. You own the ability to be immune to fuckery. Deception, fuckery, whatever you want to call it. Whatever. Any amount of bad play, bad faith, none of it. Like, that doesn't apply to you. What I mean by players should know their rights is that as a new player coming in, especially, and even older players, you have to not look at this game like therapy. It's not something that you come out of like your dad comes home, beats you for like 3 hours. You have the remaining 3 hours before you go to bed for go to school to escape reality as a superhero. That's cool. But when you're into roleplay T1 fighting, it's not just you anymore. It's you versus another person. And they're not here for that. They're here for fun. So
that's fact. That's true. That's a good point. Yeah.
Fun can be shared between you two if you guys play within the rules. But for you to play within the rules, you have to know the rules and you have to know how the game works, not just for his sake, but for your sake. So he doesn't try to screw you. And what happens a lot of times is that a new player is looking for anything, any little scrap of information to can help them improve. And a vulture will look at that person. That's a mark. So that's an easy win for me. So if I get him in a spar, I won't tell him I withhold this, and I'll do that to him. And you lose. And then what happens is that person might propagate that bad info. So say, for example, you have a bad player. He has a new player on his side. He beats him. He's going to teach his bad habits to the new guy. The new guy goes to other places, and they're going to take him for a ride too. If they choose to entertain him, then he's screwed because his experience is spoiled by his upbringing. He doesn't know what he's privileged to and what he's owed. If he wants to fight somebody in a neutral place and he wants to set that up, he has to think of himself not as a regular player. He has to think of himself as a brand. You represent your reputation. You represent your name. You're not just like me, Mobius. I'm Mobius, sure, but I also represent Mobius, aka whatever that personifies. For me to protect my brand, I have to know what kind of engagements I'm getting myself into, and then protecting that brand by ensuring that at least if I get myself in an engagement with somebody, is not something that puts me at a huge disadvantage unless it's something I did to myself. Because at the end of the day, it's something I did to myself anyway. Because if you don't look out for deception, if you don't look out for something that's intrinsically against you, then the only person to blame is you. They're not going to blame the other guy. They're going to be like, well, he fell for that. Valacrate, for example, has an entire culture. Let me say some real shit. In 2017, when Paulie was around, I was watching the people from Valacrate and RPG Guild in their Discord, and it's common for them to misinform players in DM, PM, whatever you want to call it, private conversations where they'll tell you they're doing something in a role play, but in the actual post they're doing something else. This is a form of a legitimate strategy for them. Yes,
that's deception. That's strategy. What is a strategy? Well, that's complete deception. Like, what the heck?
To a player like me, I'm a traditionalist. I look at something like that, and that's not the game. So the new player has to learn not to trust whatever their opponent says is happening if what they're reading is contradictory to what they're saying. That means you have to read the attack, the action itself as it is, word for word. If you have to read it multiple times, go right ahead. Don't rely on other players to give you your rights. That means you have to always be vigilant about protecting yourself. That means that there are people out there who will do that to you. That's an example. But yeah, point is, that is what I mean by play rights. Why, as a brand, you represent you.
Oh, got you.
So
got you. So yeah, because I remember we talked about that last time, and you was like, if a player, you say if a player like runs towards you, you see the lines and they end up behind you, they attack you. Like, you got to understand the look. Like, they're cheating. You can't do that. Like,
if a player is like, I'm faster than you, so the minute he moved, he had like a speed line, and he's behind you in the same turn. As a player, if you know your rights, you know that that's an auto hit. He's god-modding you. He's saying that he's behind you. If and the question is, can your character actually intercept the information? Can your character actually track him? If the answer is yes, then that doesn't rock. You shouldn't let that happen to you. So in order for you to ask those kind of questions, you have to know the rules. You have to know what's in your right, and you have to think about it. Like, wait a minute, that's an auto hit. That's an auto hit god mod, whatever you want to call it. That's not allowed. That's not permissible. So that's why you have to protect yourself, because people will do that. That's a fact. Nonstop.
Yeah. Dave, so you got anything to say about that?
Just the for their back at the RP Society, we had these things called the colleges, and it was essentially you had one college for each of the character archetypes. You had martial type, magic type, and tech type, and these colleges had a lot of old people in them. And they were places where they were open source resources where new players went in there and they got trained by people who were actually experts at those specific archetypes. And you would have people go from one college to another. You're just soaking up the knowledge. They would do like hypothetical scenarios. They would play out certain scenes. They would give you a character to play just to test. And then they would also teach you the intricacies of how to create a character profile, because there was a lot of skill that went into that as well. The how you go about wording your post, the kind of information you reveal, the kind of information you shouldn't reveal, the mechanics involved in all that. These were things that were accounted for by people in the communities, where teaching the newer generations was seen as a valuable thing. People that actually took an interest in it. It was always the responsibility of the older generation to help usher in the newer generation, so that the newer generation would surpass them, and so on and so forth. So, if anything, I would like to see something like that come back. Probably getting my hopes up, but I mean, that's my
no. I mean, I would say that. I mean, I think you guys. Well, one, I like this quote Gandhi said. He said, be the change you wish to see in the world.
Yeah,
You know,
that's right.
so I have virtual warfare. I try to use virtual warfare as a platform so people can come, help each other out, grow as a fighter, even grow as a person. This is why I have virtual warfare. It's not just a Discord where you just come around and just talk, left and right, just talk about what we fight here, and then go home. It's like that, nothing happened. I try to use virtual warfare to bring people together as a roleplay fighter and as a people in a society. So I wouldn't give up hope just yet. I
don't think anybody gives up hope. It's more like, at least to some degree, even without a college, even without a mentorship, without any of that, a player has to be vigilant in what he knows his rights begin and end, but also he has to rethink on what is allowed. So it's not just enough that the person just automatically hits you with a gun. It's more now. Is he hitting you with a fear aura? What does a fear aura mean? If you see him, you're afraid. Wait a minute, though. Would I be afraid? Hold on, that's not fair. That sounds like X.
Gotta roll a D20. You gotta roll that D20.
Like shit like that. Like,
hey yo,
you have to.
Oh my goodness, that's funny.
You can't look at the rules strictly as this and this. Sometimes things happen that touch on a rule that might be touching on something other rules touch on. And it's like a little bit like not an overlap, but like I'll say like an overlap, like a circle that loops into itself. Sometimes an auto hit and a retroact, or no, say a retroact and a metagame turns not a retroact. Metagame.
No, I could just I got you.
Yeah, metagame. Yeah. Metagaming could turn into a retroact. You use information or OCD to do icy stuff. Okay, cool. But you also reversed an action you did previously because you didn't like it. Why did you do that? Oh, because it's information, our character in character. So you have now this old rule has an expansion on a new rule, and with a fear aura. Well, what the fuck is that? I automatically look at you. I'm afraid. That's not fair to me. So that's a god mod. But shit like that. You, as a player, you have to with minimum amount of tools possible. You have to at least think in your head when somebody does something like that. What rule does this violate, or at least what rule does this tread on? And you have to always look at it like, what is it that players try to do to each other to get leverage? Because you also have to do things to get leverage for yourself. One of those things that for me to win, you must have less. For you to win, I must have less. One of those kind of deals. I play within the rules a lot, so I don't do the whole sneaky DM. I'm really 5 feet when I'm really 6 feet. Shit, like I don't do any of that. But I play with it. And you have to look out. You have to protect yourself, because otherwise somebody's gonna beat you. That person's never gonna get penalized. I've seen that. Some person did that to another player of mine in a tournament. DSP knows this, and I didn't penalize that player for doing that because I can't prove whether or not they did that on purpose. So I could say as well, you should have used the information in the fight. And that person's sour and is like, well, you're a roleplay fighter. You know this for years. Always follow what the person wrote, not what they're telling you. That's it. That's it at the end of the day. But for a player to know his rights, he has to be vigilant for himself, and in extension, honestly, vigilant for others. Because if you can teach others to do the same thing, then a lot of corruption at least can get solved. If not on a broader scale, but at least among your crowd. Like if you can make your environment, fucking palatable for other players to want to play in, you won. Even if it's only your tournament today, you won. At least now you're less corrupt than the other place. I have a saying in the zones. I don't know if they've seen this. I'd rather be wrong than to be a liar.
Right. I completely agree with that. I like that. I'd rather be wrong than be a liar. I like that a lot. Yeah. I definitely agree with that. I stand by this thing where it says I'd rather be. No, wait.
I'd rather be wrong.
I'd rather be an honest sinner than a lying hypocrite. That was so it's pretty much the same thing. I would be an honest sinner than a lying hypocrite.
But I'd rather be wrong. I'll be wrong. I'll be wrong.
I know, right?
I'll eat an L, whatever. I don't care. But
I know, right?
I've never been in a situation where, like, you said this, and then you actually did that, and I'm like, oh fuck, how do you say that? You can't.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, that's true.
So I'll eat it.
Well,
That's my take on it. But players need to really rethink a lot of bad habits that they've seen from other players and for themselves and others, and just tread very carefully on what they consider to be a winning move and not a winning move.
Got you. Okay, got you. I know we're kind of short on time, at least for
Yeah. For
some
days play,
people in here.
I'm going to
Some
cut
people
out
have
too.
to leave.
Yeah.
So before we leave, I did want to say this one thing. How, like, can you give us advice on how? I guess two things. One, how can you give us advice on how to become a better fighter, or just know the rules, and just maybe some of your last thoughts on, you want to tell other people, those who knew, those who experienced, or whatever. Like, give us your final thoughts on how to become a better role play fighter. I think you already touched on some of that about, with the, know your rights, know the rules, whatever, and don't, stuff like that. But can you say anything else about what it means to help us be a better role play fighter?
I'm hungry, so I'm going to go first. I would say there is no easy way. There is no fast track way of getting to becoming a better player. Everyone has the potential to just be a better player. Everyone has it in you. The only limitation you have is your imagination. Now, if you want to get better with the technical stuff in terms of life skills and everything like that, that's something that you would work on over time. My advice to anyone who wants to become a better player is two things. One, just play the game. Just play. Just when you see an opportunity to play someone, play someone. Never be afraid to play someone. And the second thing, adding on to that, is don't be afraid to lose. And if you do lose, lose gracefully.
Yeah.
Good word.
I have something for that question. So, I've done a lot of story-based RPs. I've done a lot of fighting. And honestly, to be better is lots and lots of practice. It's the most redundant thing I could say. It's like grinding it in an MMO. You just have to keep practice writing. You have to keep practice and keep your mind fresh. Be open to new ideas. You can't just sit there and let yourself stagnate and put yourself in a box of this is how everything goes and I can't do anything else. You have to be open. Because without that openness, it's just you're gonna fold.
Yeah, I could completely agree with that. Definitely.
I guess that'll be I'm the last one then. As a person who used to fight a lot, I used to cause a lot of trouble too. As a person who hosts tournaments, I've watched people come and go. I watched people get OTK'd once they're killed. I've given money to people at this point. I've pretty much seen not everything. That's not, but I've seen quite enough. As the other said, and I think the main common thing is there's no real easy way to get there. You will but I will tell you there's a lot of misconceptions of how to get there, and one of them is time. Just because you've done it that long doesn't mean that you're good at it. It's not as Loaded Lux told Calico. It's not about how many people you fight; it's who you fought. You always want to be.
That's very true.
You don't brag about being like 20 people in your neighborhood. You want to fight. You want to get the best basketball record ever. You want to beat Wade or you want to beat Jordan. You always try to go. You always You always play among the better players. You don't stay in one place. You don't stagnate. If I was to give my advice to anybody, is that you don't worry about being the best player. That is a race to the bottom, because some people end up doing whatever it takes to get there, and that usually involves cheating and duplicity.
That's absolutely right.
Be a better you. Whatever you're comfortable doing, then improve on that. Love what you do. Don't do it because you have to. Don't do it because it's meta. Don't do it because it could win you a game. Don't do it for any of those reasons. Do it because you love the idea of doing it and it excites you. It's something that you love doing. I love hosting tournaments. I love making rules. I love making systems. I love it. I don't do it for any other reason but to phase out bad things and put in good things. I want to be the change, right? But for you as a player, it's the same thing. If you want to be the best, don't worry about being the best. Don't do that. Don't fill your head up watching other people do it, unless of course you're doing it objectively. There's a thing where me and a lot of people in the Vertex group who we have this thing called professionalism versus personal. This is not personal. This game is a game, no matter what. It's a game. It's the same as a fighting game, as a Yu-Gi-Oh, as a racing game. It's not personal. It's business. This is business. This is just a game. We're here to have fun, and that is important. Fun. Are you having fun? Yes, then you're gonna have more fun. Always aim for what's fun. If being the best is fun or fun for you, then that's your route. But if it's not fun, don't try. And make sure it's positive. Don't do grudge matches. Don't do things out of anger. Don't fight people when you're angry. Don't fight them when they're angry. Otherwise, you're gonna have a bad time. You're gonna have arguments.
That's a good word too. That's a good word.
Also, to take it from me, as someone who went from E rank up to S rank, and then all that shit goes away, going to be the best is one of those like moments in time that is just so like it's very finite. You know, you go ahead, you put in the work, you do the grind, you become the best. You're the best, and then all of a sudden everything goes away. Yeah. And then nobody remembers who you are. You go to another community. They don't know you. Nobody's not gonna fucking. Oh, I'm the best. Really? Who says?
By who's metric? Yeah.
So it's So like I learned a long time ago. It's not worth it to try and constantly chase after this notion of being the best. There are people who are like, well, you should fight me. I was like, why? They're just like, no, because I'm the top ranked person in my community. So, and they're like, a lot
of people like that, yeah.
and they'll be like, well, like, aren't you some like big name person? Well, I mean, I was a big name person back in the day. And they're like, oh yeah, well, like, where's your stuff? Well, good luck trying to. I'll tell you what, if you can find it, send me the link because I'd like to see it too. It just that shit doesn't stay, man. It gets lost everything gets lost to the sands of time eventually.
Yeah,
so, but just be the best you.
Be the best you. Don't be I won't be an asshole and say never try to be the best in terms of like being better than other people, because then I did that. I went that route. Everybody's went that route, and it made me into something I like. However, just be aware that, again, like they said, you're maybe the best in one soup. You're not the best in that soup. It might be a bowl of rice. So you can, if you want to really make yourself the best, you have to be prepared to be good everywhere you are. That's consistency. You have to write good, better than everybody. You have to make the impact. You have to know how to fight. You have to know how to fight different places, different systems. But then guess what? In the end of the day, it's all about whether or not people acknowledge that. And if they say, I don't fuck with that guy. He may have killed so all the best players over here, but you know what? Fuck him. Well, then guess what? What does that mean? What have you gained from that? What you have to do for it?
You're the best for nothing.
You're the best for nothing. So just stick to, if you want to do tournaments, stick to tournaments, stick to official play. Hope that the place you go to acknowledges your accolade if you get any, but be the best you. Just be better than who you were yesterday, last week, last year, and keep going. And do it within the confines of your comfort zone. Don't imitate other people's powers or whatever the fuck they win with. Yeah, that person can win with that, but you can win with this. See, and then it's even better now because you won with that. That makes you unique. So don't be a meta sheep. In this game, there's real no meta sheep here. Whatever works is whatever situation you're in. Sometimes that worked, but that day this worked. Anybody could be anybody. So just always look forward to being better than who you were yesterday. And trust me, people will see that. People who put effort in, who loves this game, will look at that and they'll acknowledge that, and that's it. You're like, they'll bring you in. If not, they don't. But make sure you're the best of who you are. Don't strive for the shonen title of champion Hokage. Okay, we're not doing this. We've done that in the 90s. It didn't work very well then. We're trying now, but that's it. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, I got it. Well, I know everything you just said kind of reminds me of this quote. I'm not sure who said it, but I put a little twist to it, and it says, excellence is not being the best, it's doing your best. And the second part is and bringing out the best in others. So I think everything you just said encapsulated what excellence really means. It doesn't mean being the best there ever was, but it actually means doing your best, and also while doing that, you're bringing out the best helping other people, as Ade has mentioned, to bring the community back by teaching other people. So I think you guys are like the epitome of having a massive role play fighting knowledge, but also giving back to the community and trying to steer the community in the right direction without any nefarious reasons, or without trying to hurt the community, but you actually care about the community. And I hope
It's
people
all about
that.
sacrifice. It's all about sacrifice. Like,
Mhm.
like in my own tournament itself, Dace knows this. I told this publicly. People are like, "Why would you do this?" But I'm doing it. I don't compete at all, and not because I can't, but because it'll be a conflict of interest. How can I promote other people and make them the best and prop them up if I have to always step on top of them? That's not healthy for anybody. That's not healthy for my champion.
Right.
That's not healthy for me. That's not, no, who wins? What, a moment of ego? What the that doesn't help anybody.
Yeah.
The sacrifice for people like me and anybody else who wants that, you have to know when to step out the limelight. You have to know when to be in the back.
That's true.
You have to be the guy who operates the light. You can't be the guy in the light. Sometimes you have to be the guy who operates the control. You have to be the guy who gets the shit on the stage. Who knows? But you can't. It's not about you. It's not, the story's not about you. And that you have to know when to make a sacrifice. Sometimes you have to just step aside and help the platform. That's it. That's all.
Good word. Good. All right. Well, I know Dance probably has to leave, so that's going to conclude our podcast. Yeah, we're going to conclude our podcast. We will definitely bring our amazing guests back for another session. I know you guys will probably want to have questions you want them to answer, and just overall comments that you want them to hear. So we will be bringing them back. But as for now, enjoy this podcast, and we will see everybody in the future. Deuces.
Deuces.
Bye.